Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Clubhouse Picks, brought to you by Godzilla Wins. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, editor of Godzilla Wins, where you can get all of your sports picks and predictions on everything from the NBA to the UFC. Clubhouse Picks is your go-to podcast for PGA predictions, tournament previews, and salty picks for the veteran golf fan. It's a lovely Tuesday morning here in Mississippi on June 6th. We're here to give you our picks for the RBC Canadian Open at Oakdale Golf and Country Club. We're also here to talk some major news. LIV Golf, PGA Tour, and DP World Tour announcing a earth-shattering merger just 2 years after the PGA banned all players who defected to LIV from the tour. I'm here with my co-host to break down the big news and to handicap the Canadian Open. As always, Nate Perry, the greatest handicapping caddy west of the Rockies. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Big day.
Huge day. One of the biggest days probably in golf news in a very long time. So some LIV DP World Tour, PGA Tour merger news has dropped. I sort of previewed that a little bit, but just give us an overall scope of what's going on. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we feel.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of just overall scope, right? What it does is it merges the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, like you said, and not LIV Golf. It merges the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. So we're still getting news, but what it looks like is it basically combines PIF's golf-related commercial businesses and rights, which includes LIV Golf, into the commercial businesses and rights of the PGA Tour, DP World Tour. The Public Investment Fund for Saudi Arabia will make a capital investment into this new entity to facilitate growth and success per the PGA Tour's statement. And the new entity will implement a plan to grow these combined commercial businesses, drive greater fan engagement, and accelerate growth initiatives. And part of this, you know, the sort of most relevant thing for us is that it will open a pathway for LIV defectors to rejoin the PGA Tour effective at the end of the 2023 season. So guys like Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson are eligible to reapply for membership so they can play on the PGA Tour.
Abraham Answer.
Oh, Abraham Answer. Yeah, let's not forget. And Peter Uihlein can go back to the Corn Ferry Tour.
Mark Leishman.
Phil Mickelson can go back to the Champions Tour. Maybe, I don't know if the Champions Tour will allow him back, but he can go there.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be allowed back on there. Cam Smith, you know, that's another big one.
That's a huge one. Yeah, I mean, so all of those guys get back in. You know, what that process will look like. You know, they're trying to establish some sort of fair process because obviously those guys took a massive payday when they went over to LIV. So it's not, you know, there's got to be some equitable way to do it that doesn't just totally like piss off guys like Hideki Matsuyama, who turned down reportedly $300 million to join LIV. And it's not just him. I mean, he was sort of at the head of a lot of Japanese players, like a huge Japanese contingent that was supposed to go over that ended up pulling out. So it's not just Hideki. He had the biggest payday, but there are a lot of Japanese players that opted not to in the wake of him deciding to pull out. Tiger reported 500 million. So, I mean, it's huge. And it's, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about what that looks like, you know, I guess like in our hot take section now that we've sort of announced it, but yeah, how do you feel about it?
I feel as though this was the inevitable ending to the stupidest saga in sports history. All of these entities are there to make money. And the minute it became clear that public sentiment for LIV Golf was something that could be stomached regardless of who backed the league, I think the PGA probably saw an opportunity to bring in massive investment, infuse the tour with money, cash out big paydays for themselves. That'd be everyone who's involved in the corporation, and basically backtrack on everything that they said they stood for. It's incredibly hypocritical. That is obvious. Everybody can see that. Jay Monahan looks like a clown. He probably doesn't care because he's probably going to receive massive compensation for working out this type of merger, but he looks like an idiot. And the biggest problem here, and something that I think LIV Golf and the players on the LIV tour have been critical of the PGA Tour before, is that the PGA Tour is supposed to be a player-facing organization. It's supposed to be membership-driven, where the players have a lot of say in what goes on tour because they make up the tour. It's not teams. And for them to announce this without having informed the players at all in any way, shape, or form is like ridiculous and insulting to people who stood by them, like Rory and Tiger and Hideki Matsuyama, who is one of the most valuable sort of entities in golf in the world because of his sort of world fame. I mean, these guys turned down huge paychecks. They spoke out against LIV over and over and over again, only for the PGA to totally screw them in what to me looks like a money grabbing, like nonsensical move that totally backtracks everything that they have said they stood for 2 years. And it's inevitable because that's how corporations work, but it's infuriating to watch it happen if you've been on the PGA Tour and you took this, you refuse to take a payday in order to stay loyal to a corporation that was supposed to stand for something bigger.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought when I was thinking about it was, is this why Rory's been weird lately? Because I know that a lot of the guys didn't know, right? Like, you know, like guys like Joel Damon, who was posted on Twitter earlier today, sending funny tweets.
Michael Kim.
Yeah. Michael Kim, like those guys never knew. Like they would never know. But there's a part of me that was like, is that why Rory was like so stressed out? It wasn't the toll of continuously defending the PGA Tour, because he's been doing that for 2 years, right? Was it that finally Jay Monahan pulled him aside and was like, look, it's going to happen? Is that why he needed to like take like a little mental health reset? Because thing that he's done for so long meant ultimately nothing.
That'll be the first question he gets at the Canadian Open.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. It's good that he's playing this week because that's going to be addressed. I don't know if he'll speak to truth or if he'll just sort of demur and say, I don't really want to talk about that. He hasn't been demurring lately. So I imagine if he didn't know, he'll stand up on that podium and say, they didn't tell me this. What's crazy is for Rory, it actually feels like a conviction. It doesn't feel like Phil Mickelson going around the LIV Tour being like, you know, you guys are a bunch of punks and this is fine. Like it feels like an actual conviction that Rory has surrounding the sports washing that's going on with the PIF and Saudi Arabia. And would it be so shocking if he just left for a while and next year and was like, this is not something I want to be a part of.
Right. Play the majors and that's it.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, it's just got to be so hard for guys like him because they were so public facing and so critical. And it's not just like a strategic partnership that's like, okay, yeah, like now, you know, LIV guys can come back. It's all the things. It was all the talking points that Jay Monahan had that, you know, that people were being critical of Phil Mickelson when he was talking about the Saudi government and where this money was coming from. It was like the biggest talking point was always, where does the PIF get this money, right? And it's largely from, the state-owned oil company. And it's largely also from entities seized by the Saudi government as part of their quote-unquote anti-corruption plan. That's where the money comes from for the PIF. So to have not just like, you know, open a pathway for LIV guys to come back, but to announce that the PIF will be investing significant capital into the PGA Tour, what are we doing? Like what? Like if that was always the end game, like then like they needed to like, you know, pump the brakes a little bit earlier on, because now it just feels hypocritical. So it's like it's not okay for those guys to take all that dirty money then, but it's okay to take all that dirty money if you're the PGA Tour. That's where we're at now.
Yeah, the sports washing is a real concern, and you're going to see a lot of people on Twitter and in podcasts say this is great for the game of golf. We get some of the biggest names in golf back in all of these tours, and I imagine some people will end up playing on the LIV tour as well. Sure, whatever. So in the sense of like a PGA fan or a golf fan, like, yeah, I guess it's good for the game of golf, but I'm just not sure having the PIF as basically on the board, and as one of their members as the chairman of the board.
Yeah, Yasir Al Rumayyan, the
Yeah,
head of the PIF, yeah.
right. Having that reality, like operating under that reality, I don't know if that's totally good for the game of golf. I think probably what happened, I don't think that this was the PGA's end game. I think they thought, like a lot of us, that LIV would just kind of go away at some point, which was naive to think because of all the money that the PIF has. I mean, Amazon didn't make a profit for what, like 20 years or something, 15 years. They say that with Tesla all the time. It's not like these guys have to be profitable. If you have a ton of money, you can just keep infusing your business ventures with capital. So it's not that. I just think they thought that the public would be so disgusted that PGA would just kind of win in the court of opinion. And
in a lot of ways, I think they did.
The PGA, yeah. I mean, you're talking about the PGA?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people watch LIV, but even so, it didn't just explode like, or implode in a negative way like the PGA thought. And then I wonder a couple things. I wonder how much the impending lawsuit worried the PGA. They didn't want to get embroiled in that. Who knows what they found in discovery, which I think has already occurred. Who knows if they felt like there would be some sort of antitrust lawsuit that would be like a real something with some teeth, depending on who's in the White House. So I think all those are probably a consideration for the PGA Tour. I also wonder if the U.S. government might step in, depending on who's in the White House and who's running Congress, and block this merger based on the significant questions that are legitimate surrounding PIF. If that happens, I think the PGA then can wash its hands and say, well, we tried, we tried to make nice with LIV. So I think there's a lot of moving parts here. And I imagine Jay Monahan's a little bit more strategic than just looking like the world's biggest dumbass, which is what he looks like right now. But I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind this was and why keep it so secret and hide it from your players.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like this was not in an era of information is everywhere all the time. Every ship is leaky, so to speak. Nobody, I mean, this was floated nowhere by anyone. And you and me are pretty avid consumers of golf media, even sort of fringy guys, that kind of float around the internet. And I saw this nowhere. Just nobody even whispered it. This was happening. And that's crazy to me too. So
yeah, I mean, it either happened very quickly or they kept it very, very silent. Probably both. I imagine it happened quickly. But it's a major development in the golf world. And I'm just not going to sit here and say that this is great for the game of golf when we get all of our players back and the sports washing is what it is. The Saudi government has been engaging in sports washing for many, many years in different sports in order to diversify their business interests and improve their brand as a government, basically. And the fact that now we are complicit in that as golf fans and people surrounded in the golf media makes me queasy, and I'm disappointed in the PGA Tour's decision. I don't really I think that I stand by that decision. I don't really watch LIV for this reason. Now all of a sudden I have to.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So. Okay, well, we'll see. I don't know. It's definitely something that we will have to keep an eye on. And this is something that we'll kind of continue to return to. because
Well, there's going to be new developments.
Yeah, every week we're going to see newer developments towards this thing.
Yeah.
On this show, we also have sponsors, one of which is Birch Gold. Birch Gold is one of my favorite sponsors, Nate, because as the economy starts to head into a recession and inflation becomes out of control, as the Fed raises interest rates to combat this spending, long-term bonds have diminished in value, crippling the banks. Depositors are holding their breath. Investors are bailing on bank stops. Diversification is never more important. If you're an investor like me, you really have to know how to diversify. And if you don't have some money, some of your savings in gold, then you don't have a hedge against the extreme market volatility and fluctuations. This is what I want you to do, everybody. Go to or text Godzilla to 989898. That's Godzilla to 989898 to get a free info kit on gold. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. They'll help you convert your existing IRA or 401k that's tied to a volatile market into an IRA in precious metals, physical metals, gold and silver. All you got to do, text Godzilla to 989898. That's Godzilla to 989898 to claim your free info kit on gold today. Thousands of happy customers, A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Get your info kit on Birch Gold today. Text Godzilla to 989898. Okay, so we spent about 20 minutes talking about LIV, which is important, breaking news. I want to run through some other topics pretty quickly, though. The first is the Memorial. So Viktor Hovland wins the Memorial. Nate loses the Memorial.
Yes.
This was probably your closest you've come to hitting a winner. Out there in Nevada, you can gamble on the outright winners. So tell us what happened and how much it hurt.
We'll lead with it hurt a lot. It hurt a ton. I mean, Siwoo had it. Like, Siwoo was 65-1.
That was your best shot, Siwoo.
Yeah, I mean, Siwoo was my best shot. I mean, Hideki had an outside shot kind of going in. I had some other guys, that were sort of like fringy. But this is easily the best, like, sort of handicapping I've done since we started this podcast at the beginning of the year. And I mean, Siwoo had it. I mean, he misses the playoff by 2 strokes. If you're looking at his scorecard, if he just doesn't hit it in the water laying up on 14, we're there. Like, we're in the playoff at least. There were a couple other sort of sloppy bogeys. There was I think it was a 3-putt on 10 from pretty reasonable range that also sort of hurt. But I mean, he was right there. I mean, but on 14, I mean, like, he's hitting like a 5-iron off the tee to lay up. It's a short par 4, and he hits it's either a 4 or a 5-iron, just like not even close to anywhere reasonable, into the water, and then makes double bogey. I mean, it's like inexcusable. It wasn't like you had to drive into a ravine. It wasn't, it was, we're just playing it safe. We're playing for position. Everything is fine. Just keep your hands on the steering wheel. And instead he just drove off a cliff. I mean, we were still in it at that point.
65-1 would have been, I think, the longest odds this year, to be honest with you. Wyndham, I think, hit it 60-1 outright at some places.
The only one that comes to mind is Kurt Kitayama was about 100-1 when he won the API.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Kurt Kitayama. Chris Kirk, I think, no, he was only like 35-1 when he won down in Florida earlier. Yeah, he won the Honda. So that would have been a big one, and he was in the mix, but so were a lot of guys. Denny McCarthy was also sort of in the mix, and Denny got a gift on 14. I believe it was 14. He hit it into basically the same spot, and the trees threw it out onto the fairway. McCarthy looked pretty shaky. He dropped a stroke. Hovland picked up a stroke and sort of attacked, and then Hovland ended up winning in the playoff. So one of my questions here then, Nate, is when it comes to Viktor Hovland, he's been playing really incredible golf this year. And I mean, that's because Viktor Hovland is one of the best golfers in the world. But just this year, if you look at his results, I mean, okay, so he won the Hero World Challenge in December, tied for 16th at Charles Schwab, tied for second at the PGA, tied for 7th at the Masters, tied for 3rd at the Players, tied for 10th at the API. I mean, just some incredible finishes. Then, of course, he wins in the playoff at the Memorial. Is Viktor Hovland ready to win a major?
I think so. I mean, I think that he's been ready. I don't think that this win so changes sort of where he's at in his game. I mean, the warts are still there in his game. And we saw them very clearly. It was like on the 12th hole where he hit it in the right rough on a par 3, has about a 20-foot chip shot and moves it 3 feet.
Yeah.
And then gets up and down from there to save bogey. So, I mean, the warts are still there with this short game. As much as, we've sort of been thinking that maybe he's getting it fixed around the greens, he's always going to be bad. But everything else with him has been so good and remains so good that I think that, yeah, I mean, he's still as ready as he was before he won the Memorial. I don't think that I look at him and think, oh, won the Memorial, now he can win a major. I just think, this is what you get with Hovland. You get a guy who's a really good ball striker, an elite iron player, a good enough putter to win. It's just a matter of, if he can kind of just hold it together around the greens when he does miss a green, which he doesn't do very often because he's so good at everything else. So,
yeah, he's an okay putter. He's not, awesome. Strokes gained. So like total strokes gained, he's 12th on tour. Tee to green, he's 11th. Off the tee, he's 7th. Approach, he's 10th. I mean, those are like incredible numbers. So consistent. And then around the green, he's 135th. I mean, he's losing, like his total strokes around the green, not his averages. He's lost 4 strokes in 46 measured rounds, which is a lot for a guy who wins all the time. And then, putting, he's 70th. So he does struggle in some of these areas like that, especially around the green. And those warts will, I think, continue and depending on the right course, like he just has to pick up so many strokes on off the tee and with his irons that he can sort of allow his wedge game to fail him. And he has to putt well. I mean, the putt to, I think, send it to a playoff, I believe, was like not an easy putt to make. Neither was the putt to win it. And those are putts I've seen him miss before. So to me, the biggest concern here is like in a major, can his flat stick hold up that he can, sort of convert those birdies when his around the green game fails him.
And I mean, yeah, and to sort of speak a little bit more to that, I mean, this is what happens when Viktor finds a putter is, he was 3rd in strokes gained putting last week. He gained 6 strokes on the greens. So, if he can find a good putter, like that's what he needs. He was actually like pretty like unremarkable with his iron game, which is unusual. He was 26th in strokes gained approach. He was 10th off the tee. But like this is what happens when Viktor Hovland just can find a little bit or enough around the green. Like, even around the green, he gains strokes. So if he can just do that, like he's a world-class player. He just hasn't shown the ability to do that reliably. And I think that until he can, be a little bit more of a reliable putter, what we're going to see is that he plays really well on difficult courses. We've already seen that this year, with great finishes at the Masters. He had a good finish, at the PGA, had a good finish at the Players. He'll perform well on difficult courses because the strength of his game is to be able to sort of just grind out pars. The strength of his game will probably never be, and certainly not in the foreseeable future, just being able to go out and shoot 65 all the time.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And I think it's like next week at the US, I think, of course, his odds are going to be short. But as far as a top 10, he's almost like a guarantee, in my opinion. So that's something that I'll be looking at next week for an outright, or if you do the DFS stuff, for sort of a price, depending on where that is. So, we'll see. I do think that he probably is right there. And if he can putt even remotely well, will be challenging anyone for any of these majors left on the tour this year. And we all love Viktor. He's fun. He's he's always fun to root for. So Nate, one of the things about Viktor, he's got to be able to wake up on and around the greens. And the only way that I wake up, Nate, is with Beard Vet coffee. I know it's the same with you. Every morning, I wake up, jump out of bed, and grind up some Beard Vet coffee. And that's because I'm tired of drinking coffee from mega corporations that do not give a rip about me. So what I've done is I've put down that cup of regret and I've grabbed myself some Beard Vet coffee. This is terrific coffee that is veteran founded, veteran focused, and beard operated. So if you're not drinking Beard Vet coffee, you pretty much are drinking the wrong stuff. What I want you to do, I want you to go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Grab yourself some coffee today. It's a good way to support veterans who have served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. The story behind that is Sean George couldn't find a good cup of coffee while he was on tour. And he thought, we go home, we're going to start a company, one that is catered towards veterans and veterans with beards. So go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Taste the freedom today. All right, Nate, very quickly, Chan Cam. Where's our man Chan Kim this week?
So Chan the man is playing on the Corn Ferry Tour. We're coming off a miscut. It's been a pretty rough little tour of duty for Chan Kim. But, we're looking to bounce back at the UNC Health Championship being held in Greenville, South Carolina. I spent all day yesterday scouring U.S. Open qualifiers because I thought that Chanimal might be trying to qualify for the U.S. Open, but it looks like he did not. So best we can do for the next few weeks in the foreseeable future is we'll probably have a week off next week for the U.S. Open. But for this week, we are at the UNC Health Championship on the Corn Ferry Tour.
You bet him?
No, man,
right.
he's not been good lately. We were talking about it, sort of before we did the podcast. I'm not sure if he could make a putt if they replace the hole with a dumpster right now. I mean, the putting is just a disaster. Ball striking numbers are good. Putting's a mess.
Isn't it? Isn't that the case with all of us?
Yeah, it is.
I suppose.
Certainly all of our favorites.
Green. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Although I don't know. I like Taylor Montgomery. He's a good putter. So is Tyrrell, who I'll talk about in a minute. Tyrrell's a great putter.
Tyrrell's a great putter.
So, we'll see. Well, look, when all these guys merge, maybe Chan can slip onto the DP, maybe in a little live golf. You never know. He'd probably be good for one of those teams.
Play on the Four Aces.
Yeah, why not? That's the only team I know on the live is the Four Aces.
Me too.
Patrick Reed, I think, is on the Four Aces. All right, so let's talk RBC Canadian Open. I want to do two things, if you will humor me. The first is let's talk a little bit about Rory McIlroy's absolute dominance at the Canadian Open.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can also talk about Oakdale. If you want me to sort of head the Oakdale discussion, the actual course, I can. I wrote that up on Godzilla Wins yesterday. But why don't you tell us a little bit about Rory first? He's like, as an outright, he's plus 400. So there's a reason he is playing this, and there's a reason he is favored.
I mean, yeah, he's ridiculously good at it, right? He's basically won the last two iterations of it because, they took a couple years off during the COVID pandemic, but he won here in 2019. And then he won here again in 2022. And it's for most tournaments, it would be easy to say like, oh, he just plays this course really well, right? For a long time, it was mostly played at Glen Abbey. There are clearly guys that like Glen Abbey. Jonathan Vegas won 2 in a row at Glen Abbey. Tiger performed very well there. But now they've sort of been rotating it quite often, and he's won it last 2 iterations at different courses. Both have been pretty much birdie fests. When he won in 2019, he won by 7 strokes and shot 22 under par. When he won last year, he was 19 under par and won by 2. So it's not clear to me that Rory, is just playing one course well. He won both of these events at different courses. So there's something about, I don't know if it's just a weak field, if it's just a weaker field or what it is, but for whatever reason, I mean, he just really gets up and gets after it at the Canadian Open.
Yeah. Some guys are like that. Like, because he just likes playing in Canada. a lot of the European guys play in this tour every year. The British or the Northern Irish, I guess, in Rory's
Commonwealth.
case. The Commonwealth, the United Kingdom, have, Canada's still kind of a part of that, obviously. So they always have kind of, I think, a little bit of a brotherly love for north of the border. But because this tournament comes right on the heels of a major and it's not an elevated event this year, the field is it's not weak. Like there's actually there's 24 of there's like something like that. I think it's 24 of the top 100 OWGR golfers are in this tournament. So it's not like horrible, but it's a little weaker than we would normally see because it's not an elevated event. Rory, who's missed 2 elevated events, is so good here that he's going to play in, even though next week he's got to fly to LA and play in the US Open. So, we'll see. He's definitely the favorite. I wouldn't blame anyone who put him on his card, but we'll see what happens with that. As far as, like you said, so the Canadian Open, Glen Abbey, it's been played there. And then it's moving around, I think, a little bit more. Last year it was at St. George's Golf and Country Club, which is very similar to Oakdale in the way that, like, a lot of people are looking at Oakdale, which is where it's being played this year, as an easier St. George's. I don't know if that comp is completely merited, but it is good. Both courses, that's Oakdale and St. George's, were designed by Stanley Thompson, who's a legendary Canadian golf architect. It's a 27-hole course, and what they're going to do is they're going to take 4 holes on one of the 9 holes, 5 holes on another 9 holes. That's going to make the front 9. Then the back 9 are the later holes designed by Thompson's protege, Robbie Robinson, which was added in 1957. That's going to be the back 9. The front 9 is going to play more difficult than the back 9. The yardage is going to change because the tee boxes will change. On average, the par 3's distance is 191 yards, par 4's 421, par 5's 546. The 18th was a par 4 and was now moved to a par 5. That should make things a little bit easier for them to pick up strokes. And the grass, so the rough is going to be 4 to 5 inches Kentucky bluegrass, and the greens are bent grass with 20% Poa annua, which, as we know, is very difficult to putt on. But it's mostly bent grass. So if you want to use bent grass in your strategy, you certainly can, as far as like how these guys putt on bent grass. You can always go to weknowfantasy.com. That's Nate Brown's website, and look at his strokes gained on the different types of grass. Some other comps you might like: Sedgefield, TPC River Highlands, Detroit Golf Club. I like the Detroit one. The course is going to favor accuracy off the tee, good ball strikers with approach game. I also like sand save percentage because there's a lot of the hazards are sand. Birdies are better conversion percentage because this is going to be a birdie fest. I'm expecting the winner to be anywhere from 20 under to 23 under. And the way these guys have been playing this year, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 26 under. And then putting on bent grass, that's kind of what I'm looking at as far as my strategies for picking these guys. You have any thoughts on the course?
I mean, yeah, I've sort of been, reading all this stuff because obviously this is a new course. And like you were saying, it's a little bit of a Frankenstein course as well. And I pretty much agree with everything you're saying. It looks like the front 9's a little bit more difficult, and it looks like the back 9 guys are going to really have a chance to score and go low, which should make for like a pretty volatile viewing experience. But yeah, it feels like a pretty easy course. I mean, these guys are going to shoot in the 20s. Yeah, for sure.
And that's how it's supposed to go before a major. I mean, these courses are always supposed to be tune-up courses. You don't want these guys grinding out right before a major. You want them just tuning up their game. But what that means is guys who really can sink those birdies are going to have a major advantage. The field is not weak, but it does get a little tricky after you get past those top 24 on the OWGR. You start to sort of scratch your head and wonder where you're going to get some value in some of that stuff. Nate, one place that I find a lot of value, and we'll talk about our picks in a minute, is MyPillow. Listen, go to mypillow.com and put in the promo code FUN. That's promo code FUN, FUN, You can get all sorts of discounts. I use this promo code all the time, up to 80% discounts on pillows. My Pillow has the best slippers, some of the best towels. You can get a robe. Father's Day's coming up. Listen, My Pillow, you don't know what to get your dad. Get him some slippers. Get him a pillow. I mean, those pillows are incredible. They really are. And the discounts are nuts. MyPillow.com, promo code FUN. Lock it in. Grab yourself some pillows. Okay, so Nate, we're going to do what's in your bag. I'm going to clear something up about how we do these, and then we'll move on. So in Nevada, where Nate is located, gambling is legal, and he can gamble on outright winners, the top fives, all the stuff that we talk about on this podcast. I live in Mississippi, where unless you are standing on the floor of a casino in a sports book, you can't bet those types of things. Now, sometimes I do that, but what you can bet in Mississippi, like a lot of places, is fantasy. So you can go to DraftKings and listen, go to DraftKings.com, sign up, use the promo code Godzilla, $150 in free play on a $5 bet. So if you're in a state that allows DraftKings, use that promo code Godzilla for that. So what I do and what I've sort of gravitated towards more is the DFS sort of daily fantasy stuff. So you go to GodzillaWins.com and you'll find two different previews and predictions for these golf tournaments, especially in the summer when I have time off from my regular job as a teacher. You'll see my DFS predictions, and that's going to have, the $50,000 salary cap and how I spend that money. And then you'll also see Nate's preview and predictions for the outright winner. So you go to Godzilla.com, click on the golf tab, and you'll see both of those. For the purposes of the podcast, we use the outrights, and we always start, Nate, with our driver. That's our heavy hitter, our big time favorite. I'll start with you. Who in this category do you like?
I've gone back and forth, and I feel like often I just say, take the chalk, eat the chalk here. But I'm not going to do that this time. I actually like Justin Rose quite a bit at 18-1. I think that he's at a point in his career now, he's not, a spring chicken anymore. That there are certain courses that Justin Rose can win at. There are certain ones that he cannot. This is a course that he can win at. Really, he's sort of limiting himself now to sort of playing shorter courses. His sort of scheduling seems to sort of validate what I was thinking when I was looking back. He plays all the big ones. He played the PGA, tie for 9th, tie for 16th to the Masters. But really, a lot of his sort of scheduling outside of elevated events is sort of tailored towards this sort of playing shorter courses of Charles Schwab, RBC Heritage, that sort of thing. And I think that those give him the best chance to win. I like him here at a shorter course. I mean, because he's just average in distance now. So they're just long courses. He's not going to be very competitive by virtue of that. But he can compete here. I mean, everything is going pretty well for him in terms of game. The iron game is just like outrageous. I mean, those numbers are just like jump off the page good. He's putting it well. And he's coming in off 6 straight made cuts. Like I said, the top 10 at the Masters, top 20 at Augusta. He won earlier this year. So I like Justin Rose at 18-1. I don't have any problem betting that, I don't know if we're going to get the full commitment out of Rory. I mean, God, this has got to be an emotional week for him. He's got LA Country Club coming up next week in the US Open. I don't really have any interest in taking him at 5-1, despite his sort of, historical dominance at the Canadian Open.
I think with Rory, he either wins by 14 strokes because he's furious, or he doesn't make the cut. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure
I'm more inclined to say he doesn't make the cut.
Yeah. I'm not even sure he's going to want to stick around for the weekend, but you never know. I mean, these guys are weird. They're athletes, and they train a long time for this, and they like making money. So, we'll see. So you like Rose 18-1. I like Tyrrell Hatton at 11-1. That's my big favorite, and I actually really love this pick. I think Tyrrell is primed to win a tournament. I think this probably is the one that he can really get. The thing with Tyrrell is his game is trending in the right direction. Tied for 12th at the Memorial, tied for 15th at the PGA, tied for 5th at AT&T Byron Nelson, tied for 19th at RBC, tied for 34th at Masters. So he's improving week to week. Like he's trending upward. For his game, the stuff that I'm looking at. So driving accuracy 55th. So it's not like he's the most accurate off the tee, but in this field, He'll be fine. His approach is 18th. He's always been a good iron player. Birdies are better conversion rate. He's 13th. So that's one of the things I'm really looking at. Can you feast on the greens? And we all know that Tyrrell's an elite putter. And on bent grass, his strokes gained is plus 0.402 after putting 12 rounds. Sand save 73rd. But I mean, that's kind of a smaller stat that I'm looking at. So I really like Tyrrell. I mean, he's 11-1, so it's kind of a boring choice, but I'm a big Tyrrell fan this week. I think at some point he's going to grab one. He's just been playing incredible golf.
Yeah. I mean, he has been, and at some point he will. I mean, God, I'm nobody bangs the drum harder for Tyrrell than me. We talked about it earlier this week. I've just been staring so hard at the U.S. Open odds, like 55-1 for Tyrrell. Those numbers just don't make sense to me. So
my thing with that is if it's 55-1 and I haven't looked, then the top 10 is probably 5.5-1 or maybe 5-1. And that feels like an incredible bet to get 5-1 odds on the idea that Tyrrell Hatton could finish in the top 10 at a major after playing just some of the best golf of his career in the last couple of weeks. That to me, that doesn't seem far-fetched at all. So I think you're right on both accounts there. And I think that I think if you like Tyrrell, in my opinion, you got to bet him now, because if he wins this tournament, it's going to get hammered down to 20-1 before you can get on the app. So if you like him, stick with that. Okay. So let's go then to our irons. These are heavy hitters, reliable, 20, 30, 40-1, those types of odds. I got one or two that I like, but I got one that I, am really excited about. So why don't you go first? Give us an iron, then I'll move on.
Yeah, God, I mean, the middle of this field, the sort of iron range that we go for, which is generally 20 to 80-1 ish, is pretty weird. Just because there's such a steep drop off between the sort of elite talent that's here and then guys that are sort of in this longer shot range. The one that kind of I've been staring at quite a bit is, and I don't even know if I love this that much, Lee Hodges at 60-1.
Oh wow! All right,
yeah,
getting weird already.
Yeah, we're just gonna. I mean, my card's pretty weird this week, man. I don't have any problem with. He's played pretty well at some sort of birdie fest courses. He had a really good tournament at the Amex. He had a pretty good tournament at the Valero Texas Open, which were both had really low winning scores. The Amex winning score was -23. Texas Open was -15. So he's shown himself to be fairly comfortable in birdie fest. He's been hitting the ball really, really well. The putter is not always cooperative with Lee, but at a birdie fest like this, I see a lot of guys say "Oh, I just want a hot putter." I tend to not agree with that logic, just because really good putters at birdie fest don't always necessarily manifest into winners because they don't give themselves enough opportunities to make birdie. What I really am looking for is guys that are posting really strong approach numbers, and you just hope they get a little bit lucky on the greens, because they're just going to give themselves so many more opportunities than a guy like Mav McNeely or whatever, who's like a bent grass putting god who never hits a green, right? So
yeah,
I'd rather have a guy that's actually hitting greens.
These greens are small. That's another thing to keep in mind. So if you can't land it on the green, then you're not going to be in a position. I mean, you're going to be chipping. And nobody wants to be, chipping all the time for birdie. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I think you're right. I mean, it's good to have a hot putter. You want to be able to sink those putts to grab birdie, but you also need to be able to get up and down quickly. So I think you're right there. Mav McNeely is always a tough one to think about because he's such a good putter, but he just doesn't do anything else well. So, I mean, he's not winning tournaments.
Right.
So, okay. Lee Hodges. Okay. That's a big one. I mean, 60-1, we got there quick. My iron, Nate, I like Sahith Theegala. He's all over Twitter right now. So I'll share that maybe in a minute as far as the reaction to the LIV stuff. So maybe he might be a little distracted. But look, he's 30-1 and he's just so strong. Anytime, his odds are getting harder to swallow for a guy that hasn't won, but he just plays so well. Tied for 40 at the PGA, tied for 56 at the Wells Fargo, tied for 5th at RBC Heritage, 9th at the Masters. He's got 7 top 10s Nate, in 2022 and 2023 season. That dates back to like October 7. That's incredible for someone so young as him. And on this course, if you can stomach the fact that he's not an accurate driver off the tee, so he is going to be in the rough, and he's not actually that he's okay with approach. He's a birdie fest machine, again 13th, sand save percentage 16th, putting on bent grass over 8 holes plus 1.399. So he is a hot putter. But to be honest with you, Nate, like I don't even really worry about his stats because they always kind of suck. And then he always finds himself in a position in the tournaments, most of these tournaments, where he's kind of sneaking around. He doesn't miss cuts. Like he hasn't missed a cut since October, I don't think. So he's not going to miss the cut. And I don't know, like the numbers for him are not that great. They never are, but he performs so far above that I have to think that he's just, because he's so young, he's rapidly improving his game. And so some of those numbers are just from some earlier tournaments, and he plays all the time. So he plays lots of hard courses. So I really like Sahith. He's 30-1. He's a good price on the DFS if you do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's tough to handicap because he consistently sort of outperforms like the sort of advanced metrics that we often use to handicap guys. And there's like really like no way to quantify how he does it other than like he just does what he needs to make cuts, to make pars, puts himself in position every week, it seems like.
Yeah, he's just a gamer. I mean, that's the best way to put it. And the numbers are going to get better every week because he's so young. So I'm right there with him. I'm going to ride that wave. Okay, so those are our irons. You like Lee Hodges at 61. I like Sahith at 30-1. Now let's look at our wedge. These are guys, really, Sahith could have been my wedge, doesn't really win. But these guys who don't usually win, but you just love to bet them. I'll let you go first here. Who do you like in this category?
Yeah, so who I like in this category is a guy that we've talked about before. And he's a guy that I kind of think about a lot on shorter courses, and particularly sort of like Birdie Fest, because he has won a Birdie Fest before earlier in his career. And, I love his social media presence. We're talking about Michael Kim.
Michael Kim.
Yeah, I like Mike Kim. He's made 8 out of his last 9 cuts. He's finished inside the top 7 3 times in his last 9 tournaments. And he won that 2018 John Deere where he went like ultra low. So this feels like a course that he can win at. He's another, a lot of guys that I sort of picked and sort of liked are guys that they're never going to be awesome at like a Bombers course, which is, sort of the typical tour standard. But Michael Kim does everything pretty well. He's average distance. He's just kind of, he's just sort of average at everything. But at 65-1 in this field, I don't hate him. I mean, he seems to prefer these courses where he can sort of get low. He seems to prefer courses that are a little bit on the shorter side. Charles Schwab, he was tied for 6th. So, that's sort of where I'm leaning. He had tied for 11th at Pebble Beach Pro-Am, which is also kind of a shorter course. So he's posted some good results on sort of shorter courses or courses where you go low, like the Puerto Rico Open, where he finished 5th. So I like Mike Kim. I mean, he's just trending in the right direction. His last tournament was a Charles Schwab. He gained strokes in every major metric. So, you could do worse than 65-1 for that guy. I mean, his price has sort of been getting banged down. He's been pretty trendy, but that's sort of where I'm at.
And you have to wonder if the trendiness is just the fact that his Twitter presence is pretty strong, or if he's playing well. But he is playing well, and I think he's one of those guys who's going to continue to get hammered down, especially in a weak field. And that's what you want is like guys. Like, to be honest with you, I get kind of fancy with some of these picks, but you could really just look at the guy's results in a weak field, and if they're trending upwards, you could just take them. Because this is a field where if you're playing well in all aspects of the game, you're probably going to make the cut. And then you might give yourself an opportunity on Saturday to move up and find yourself in a top 20 position by Sunday. So we'll see. I think that's not a bad bet at all. I like that pick. I'm sticking in the lower numbers. You really are finding some long shots here, but I understand why. This is a tournament where you probably can find those. For my wedge, I like Kashmir Keith. Keith Mitchell. I mean, God, what's not to like about Keith Mitchell? So the problem with Keith, and this goes, I think, to your sort of trepidation with this course is his iron game sucks. I mean, his approach numbers, he's strokes gained approach, he's 149th on tour, so that's not good at all. Again, driving accuracy though, 39th. He's kind of a bomber. I mean, he hits it long and pretty accurate for a guy who hits it long. So I'm thinking that he may be able to just utilize, like a lot of these guys are going to lay up, and he may be aggressive enough to hit a bunch of these shots off the tee. And if he could stay in the fairway, he might be all right. You know, he's just always kind of around in these tournaments. Tied for 48th at the Memorial, tied for 58th at the PGA, tied for 59th at the Wells Fargo, 53rd at the Masters. So like a weak field, I'm chopping off like 30 places. I mean, I think he's probably sitting in the top 20 just in this market. And I believe for outright, I mean, the price isn't great on a guy who hasn't been playing that well. Yeah, 35-1. So it's not horrible. And he, you know, he's going to have to do better in his approach game. He's going to have to take advantage of birdies a little bit more, but I do think that the way he's been playing in a field like this, you know, if it's not going to be one of the guys in the top of the leaderboard like Rory or Matt Fitzpatrick or something, it could be someone like Kashmir Keith.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, I build out this whole idea of what I want in a golfer for a tournament, and then I just pick guys I like. So I'm not sure Keith like really fits that model at all, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to my bet regret, and that's exactly where I was headed.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah. So I guess we just do that.
Yeah, we'll pause real quick before we do that, because we want to thank targettraining.co. Patrick at targettraining.co has been one of our biggest advocates here at Godzilla Wins. With all the fear out there about the economy and personal finances, many people are turning to trading the markets to help support themselves and their families. Trading is risky, there's no doubt about that. It's not something that should be entered into lightly. It's all the more reason to get the proper training and education. Target Trading Academy is considered the #1 futures training education company in the industry. Over the last 15 years, the team has developed successful, respectable, repeatable trading strategies, and Target Trading Academy delivers these trading methods to you in a highly structured and effective learning environment. So here's what you need to do. Go to targettradingacademy.com and sign up for a free virtual campus tour. That's targettradingacademy.com. There you can see Patrick and company in action, find out firsthand why they're the #1 trading education company in the game. You can also go to targettrading.co. That's targettrading.co, or call 888-203-3731. That's 888-203-3731 in order to take back some of your financial freedom. Okay, Nate, bet and regret. Go ahead. I've got a good one too.
My bet and regret is, you know, so this whole sort of time that we've been previewing our picks and sort of talking about our picks, I've sort of been targeting guys that have good approach numbers, maybe aren't necessarily the longest players in the field, but, you know, give themselves a lot of looks at birdie, even if they're not the most reliable putters. You know, that's sort of been my logos, is, you know, good iron players that, you know, maybe we catch a hot putter this week at a long price. And then I did the thing which I always do, which is, you know, I build this whole card out, you know, I bet 4, 5, 6 guys, whatever. And then there's like one guy who's just a total outlier. And that's my bet regret, is like, there's no reason that I need to be betting on Vincent Norman in this golf tournament.
Nope, none.
He does not fit any of the criteria that I want in this golf tournament. I think it's just like the one that's like to cover me a little bit. It's like, all right, well, if I just sucked at handicapping this whole thing, maybe just fucking bomber wins it and whatever. And that's basically like where I'm at with him, is like, Vincent Norman is ridiculously long off the tee. He's a terrible putter. He's, you know, average in approach. He's, you know, okay around the greens, a little bit below average. He's not terribly accurate. He fits none of my criteria. He's 80-1. And, you know, when he's sneaking around the leaderboard, I'm going to be talking about how I'm a genius. But I'm a genius sort of in spite of myself, because this does not, this is literally like if everything you've been doing is wrong, then the opposite must be right type of pick. And that's Vincent Norman for me.
Yeah. Good luck with that one. He was not on my card, but my bet and regret is fairly similar. I'm on Aaron Rye this week. Not even sure what I know his price on
Oh,
DFS.
nothing wrong with Aaron Rye on this course.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the problem with Aaron Rye. Okay, so first of all, he's 90 to 1. God, he's so accurate. He's like just the most accurate golfer ever. So driving accuracy 6th, approach 53rd, birdies are better conversion 147th. So that's not great.
Yeah, he's a terrible putter.
Yeah, he's a horrible putter. Sand save 192nd. So don't find Aaron Rye in the sand. Putting on bent grass though, Nate, he's only minus 0.014. So it's not like he's averaging, 3 strokes every time he gets on bent grass. He is going to struggle to putt with that Poa Annua and everything else like that. My issue with Rye is not his numbers because they actually are pretty good, but oh my God. He missed the cut at the Memorial, the AT&T, the Wells Fargo, and the Mexico Open. So he's not playing well.
Mhm.
The only thing that I can take solace in is the Charles Schwab where he finished T12. And I just feel like, weak field, a course where you got to be accurate, maybe with those small greens, he can get up on his approach or around the green game and just sort of knock it in for birdie. And we'll see. I think probably the issue is going to be if he just has an atrocious front 9 on Thursday and can't recover because it's a little bit more difficult. But it's not a course that's super long, so you don't have to be a bomber. And he's not. You want to avoid that rough. I don't know. I just regret it because he's you hate to bet guys who aren't making cuts anywhere. So
Right.
other than the Charles Schwab, he's like Rainer. It's like he's just, if he makes the cut, it's usually a course he's playing well in and he's finishing in the top 20. It's just sometimes he just, I don't know, kind of sucks, but 90 to 1, I mean, nothing wrong with that.
No, 90 to 1's a great price.
Yeah, especially for my man Aaron Rye, who I'm on a lot. I'm always betting him. I got a good long shot too. Who's your long shot?
Oh, I got a
hybrid.
deep long shot.
Deep.
All right. Just go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of DraftKings, towards the bottom, and you're going to find Aaron Cockerell. Got to get a Canadian in here. Got to get a Canadian long shot in here. So he's 250 to 1. Aaron Cockerell's 250 to 1. He plays, if you're not just a total junkie, you're probably thinking, who the hell is that? And you wouldn't be wrong because he plays mostly on the DP World Tour now. But his results on the DP World Tour have been excellent. He really hasn't finished outside the top 25 in his last 5 starts worldwide. He had a second place, solo second at the ISPS Handa in late April. He's coming off of this event. His last tournament was a month ago, where he finished tied for 10th at the Sudal Open in Europe. So the results have been good on the DP World Tour, and obviously he's making the trip over to Canada to play in his sort of national open. So I don't know. He's another one that doesn't really fit any of my criteria. He's like an elite putter, and he does nothing else well. So this is the guy that you just hope that maybe you can find something. I guess you have to get an elite putter in there. He's really short. He's a really short hitter. So this isn't a course he's never going to be a guy that can contend on the Bombers course. But on the DP World Tour, he can be competitive because the course are sometimes a little bit shorter. This course is a little bit shorter. It's probably set up a lot more like a DP World Tour event. So I'm willing to just roll the dice on it, on a Canadian long shot at 250 to 1. That's all. That's my whole. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, the issue with that is the Canadians haven't won this tournament in like 100 years.
Yeah,
something like that, 80 years. So that it's not like they do well here, but we'll see. We'll see. Mine is yeah, who cares, right? I mean,
a couple of bucks. Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm with you. I got Patton Kazire 180 to 1. All right.
There we go. Patton.
You don't have to look far to see that Patton's game is going in the right direction. T48 at the Charles Schwab Challenge, T30 at the AT&T Byron Nelson. Those are the only 2 results I'm going to reference here because they're the last 2 he's played in. So he's moving in the right direction. Is he accurate off the tee, Nate? No. Is his approach game solid? No. Is his sand game solid? No. Can he putt on bent grass? Not really, kind of. But birdies are better conversion 15. So, birdie fest. Who knows? That's all I have. That's literally all I have. But he's 180 to 1. and he's played well in his last 2 tournaments. So maybe he does the same here. And he was cheap for the DFS. It was like 7,100 or something. And after you spend a bunch of money on Kashmir Keith, you don't have much left. So you need some patents. Kashmir Keith was quite pricey this week. So was Tyrrell.
Oh, Tyrrell was very pricey.
Yeah. But I think Tyrrell might win. So, we'll see. I'm excited for the possibilities of a T35 for my man Patton Kazire. You just never know. You just never
know when he's going to pop up and get one of those top 40s.
Yeah. And look, if you're in Virginia and you're looking at some of this stuff, you got to go down to Rosie's Gaming Emporium. Rosie's has paid out over $175 million in jackpots so far this year. That number grows every day. Starting this month, new members play for free at Rosie's. Sign up for a free Rosie's Rewards card and instantly receive anywhere from $25 to $1,000 in free play for your visit. You got to learn more about this promotion if you're in Virginia. Go to Rosie's Rewards and Jackpots at rosiesgaming.com. That's rosiesgaming.com. Horse racing starts in July. My father, the Godzilla Truth, he'll be there. Gambling problem in Virginia, call 1-888-532-3500. So we always want to thank Rosie's for their support today. Scrolling Twitter, we'll end with this. There's a little Sahif text from, this is going to be from, oh no, I lost it. Give me a minute. Terrific radio here. Okay. This is from Gabby Herzig, who, kind of like a golf reporter. And she was, I guess, texting Sahith Thagala.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Sahith said. Just craziness. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for it. This is in reference to the LIV PGA merger. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it's not going to be good enough reason for the utter lack of communication. I mean, how are the top 10 players in the world finding out on Twitter? But I'm biting my tongue till there's more stuff we hear. No players are going to be okay with this. I think he's right there. I'm also seeing on Twitter. Now, this is just Twitter, so you never know. It's not the New York Times. That a lot of the top players are calling for Jay Monahan to resign.
Yeah.
Which he's not going to. So there's no way he's going to orchestrate something like this and then resign. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I suppose if there's enough, who knows? I mean, what'll be interesting, I think, is if some of the top 10 guys come out and they're like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'll just retire.
Yeah. Like I quit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It probably won't happen. This will probably all blow over, but it's just crazy.
It's nuts. It's just crazy. It is. I just want to see like more of these guys sort of respond earnestly. And we're about to get into press conferences today and tomorrow. Prior to the Canadian Open, I think we'll have a lot more information. We'll get a lot better sense of sort of player sentiment then.
Yeah, we absolutely will. We absolutely will. We'll be following this story the rest of the summer. I want to thank everyone to listening to this week's episode of Clubhouse Picks, brought to you by Godzilla Wins. You can download and listen to Clubhouse Picks on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please be sure to download, rate, and review if you like the show. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and like our videos. Nate, next week we're in LA for what? Did I lose you?
Sorry, I was muted. My dog was drinking water. We are at the LA Country Club for the US Open next week, Father's Day weekend.
All right. Yeah, Father's Day weekend. And you and I will be in Texas for
with
some
my father.
golf. Yeah, that's right. For some golf. So everybody have a successful 2023 RBC Canadian Open. We'll see you next week for the US Open. Happy golfing.